Hello and welcome back to Fuzzy's Kitchen. Today we're actually going to jump into sous vide. You may or may not have heard of this method of cooking. It's relatively new in the consumer space, but restaurants have been doing it for a really long time. What it essentially lets you do is to water cook something at a very low temperature for a long stretched out amount of time. So if you've ever been to a restaurant, cut into a steak and saw that perfect medium rare color is literally for the majority of the steak with only a little bit of graying on the outside. That's essentially the cheat on how they actually get there. So the bill of materials that we're going to do today, obviously we have our steak. We're going to do filet mignon. This is off of a beef tenderloin cut. It's looking very good. We're essentially going to rub it with salt and pepper, as well as rosemary and thyme. If you've seen my bacon wrap filet recipe, that's kind of the similar type of topping that we're going to use for this. 1 tablespoon of butter per each steak. We're going to mince up some shallots as well as use minced garlic. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to vacuum seal that in a bag with my food saver. So we'll leverage this and then we'll actually submerge it in water with the sous vide. Now you can use a food saver like this for vacuuming. You can also just use a Ziploc bag. If you do use a Ziploc bag, just make sure that you squeeze out all the extra air in it. So what we'll do is we'll actually prep all the ingredients, and then I'll show you kind of how to package and vacuum seal it next. So my camera aired out, so you have to bear with me. First you take your steak, and then you take your olive oil. You cover it on there nice and well so that the seasoning sticks. You then hit it with an ounce of salt, some pepper, some rosemary and thyme, and just eyeball it to your preference. It should have a good, healthy crust. Do it to both sides, and then once you've done it to both sides, put it in the vacuum sealed bag. Add a tablespoon of butter, and then add your minced garlic and shallots to the top, just on one side. And then you should be ready to go. Okay, so now that we have everything prepped and all the ingredients in a bag, I'm going to take my Food Saver vacuum sealer, and I'm basically going to whittle, first and foremost, the steak as close as I can to the inside to get this down and into the vacuum sealing chamber. I'm going to close the lid and lock, and then I'll hit my seal. Now you can see the air sucking out. I'm going to help push any excess air out completely, and then we're going to let it finish its seal. And then we can release. So I'm going to add one more seal just to ensure that there is no leakage, because obviously you do not want any of the juices to escape, nor do you want any of the water to saturate and get into the bag. So I always double seal. And then that's it. So you repeat this 4 times, and then you just totally submerge this bag into the water. We're going to do 130 degrees. That'll give us a nice medium rare consistency in the inside of the steak before we sear it. So as you can see, we're about to hit our target temperature on our sous vide of 130 degrees. Now, the way this works is that's actually the target internal temperature for this cook. So when you think about what the sous vide's doing, and you can kind of see it at work right now, it has a heating element that basically circulates the water, and it regulates a temperature, a constant temperature of your target, which is 130. In this case. So what happens is when you submerge the meat, it's going to push water heated to exactly 130 degrees, and you'll see that we just hit that target. And it'll slow cook for, in our case, probably 4 hours, but anywhere between 1 to 5 or 6, depending on what you're cooking. And it'll actually heat from the outside inward first, but since the temperature of that water never exceeds the target, everything will be cooked consistently through the meat to that temperature of 130 degrees. And then what we'll do from there is we'll take it off and we'll sear it to get a nice crisp outside, but it'll be a real quick flash sear so that we don't further cook the inside too much. You can see all of our steaks are lined up here, all vacuum sealed. So we are ready to go. We simply just take them at this point and submerge them completely in the water. You'll see you just drop it in, try to make sure that all of it is there, and try to plan for displacement. We have a lot of steaks we're putting in, So the water will obviously rise as we continue to add more steaks. So you need to plan for that so you don't get boil over. And our last and final steak, and this is a big one, a tight squeeze, there we go. And then just try to push to make sure that they're all completely submerged. If there's a little bit poking out, that's okay. You can always check back in and kind of flip and resituate them. So that's all you do. It's doing the rest of the work. So in this case, we're gonna leave this at about 130 degrees. You see we dropped down a little bit because I just put in room temperature steaks, but it'll climb back up. And then, after 4 hours, we'll pull these out. We'll cut open the vacuum seal, and we'll finish them off on the grill. All right, so welcome back. It's been about 4 hours cooking at 130 degrees. As you can see, these guys are a little bit gray in color. They're exactly how you'd expect to see them, though. They are cooked all the way through at 130 degrees. So if we cut through this, you'll get hit with the aroma of what's been cooking and all the juices. So we'll go ahead and take it out. I'll go ahead and kind of show you what it looks like. But as you can see, all the juices are still there. It's been marinating. It's completely cooked through at 130 degrees right to the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on the big green egg to finish it. We're going to hit it with Jack Daniel's Woodchips to give it a little bit of a smoky flavor. And then these things will be ready. So we'll check back in when we put this on the grill. All right, so we are just over 500 degrees, so this is the perfect temperature for us to do what we want to do with these steaks. So we're going to let the egg burp a little bit to get the air out so we don't have a flare up. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add our wood chips in. Healthy amount. We're going to put our grate back on. And now we're going to put our steaks on direct heat, directly over the flame. And we're going to sear these things about 2 minutes per side. We really just want to get some of the crispy flame in there. We don't need to cook it any more than it's already cooked on the interior because it already is cooked from the sous vide. So I'm going to close it up and we'll flip it in 2 minutes. All right, so it's been a little bit over 2 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and flip this. And what we should see is some good sear marks on the side. Yep, so that's about what we want to see. Yep, a little bit of red from the smoke as well. And then we're going to basically repeat. We're going to do the same thing on the other side for another 2 minutes. If you want to go a little bit more to 5, that's fine. I wouldn't go much beyond that because then you'll actually start overcooking your steak. So we'll go ahead and close it up for another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll take them off. All right, so it has been a little over 2.5 minutes and these guys are ready to come off. So you'll see on the other side of these, we have the same charring. It looks really good. A lot of that red, starting to sizzle at the top. So these will be perfect. They'll be medium rare in the middle and charred on the outside. So we'll go ahead and pull these off. And we'll let them rest for at least 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to let them rest probably for 20 while I finish up the sides. So we'll check back in after these sit and rest on the counter. All right, so this has been resting now for about 30 minutes. So it should have all the juices redistributed. Big reason why it's important to let the meat rest is because when you think about how meat actually cooks and heats, a lot of the juices flow up toward the outside to expel from the meat. So when you let it rest, it has time to actually sink all the way back in. So we're going to take a bite off of one of these. And you'll see it's got a nice red toward the middle of it. It's really easy to slice. It'll get more red as you get more toward the middle, obviously. That's about perfect. That's exactly what you want. So you see it's medium rare from here to here, and it only has that much browning on the outside. So we'll take a bite. Super flavorful. Everything's kind of been ingrained because it's been doing that boil for four hours. Super moist, really easy to cut. demonstrating this is an actual butter knife. You always hear that as a benchmark for a steakhouse. It cuts easier than your typical steak knife into this type of meat. So really juicy, really tender, delicious. Enjoy.